Wednesday, we're going to go watch Trey Lance, and then we're going to have some takes on Wednesday's pod. And I know what happens every time we watch Trey Lance and give our takes is we get feedback like this. I want to read you a couple comments from the last YouTube video.
Haberman was salty at these comments.
Jaheim said, I like Ham podcast, but your Trey Lance take on your last podcast wasn't good. Jack from the Press Democrat said he was 16 of 20 with one bad throw. And Grant from SI said 17 of 20. And then somebody replied to that. Niner by nature said, let them hate, fam. Another comment, it's pretty concerning when you guys are praising Nate Sudfeld. If Trey does not consistently throw an accurate or catchable ball, then it's obviously a problem in Kyle's offense, which is predicated on yak. Ball placement's everything. For being honest, I think Trey is a young kid with great personality. Everyone wants to root for him. He's a high-character guy. It's easy to see why the Niners liked him. He really looks the part and says the right things. I wish the best for him. That's not a controversial take right there.
No, not at all.
It was a response.
It's a very positive guy.
You and I had talked about how the ball looks coming out of Nate Sudfeld's hand. And, do not interpret that as any sort of assessment of like
on one throw that was deep. Nate Sudfeld. Honestly, I tell Kyle if that's your back quarterback, and I think we talked about this on the podcast. Like, I don't feel great about the Niners situation at the quarterback position beside Trey because we don't know if Trey can stay healthy. So once Jimmy, I don't know how they're going to trade him. They keep saying that. I don't know where the trade comes from, but Carolina or bust, it would feel like. But like, if Nate Sudfeld has to play, the Niners are going to lose. Maybe a one-off game, right? If Trey just missed one game, they could figure out a way to win, right? Defense, run the ball, but it would be difficult. I would not, especially if they were playing a playoff level team or just a good team.
Yes,
I would bet against the Niners if Nate Sudfeld started any game.
Yes, and I think when we talk about how he throws, we're just talking about his on-air, how he physically throws. Just because a pitcher throws 98 doesn't mean he's going to become Nolan Ryan. And we're just talking about that.
I thought we talked like we get why he's in the league. Not why he's like...
He's just fun to watch throw the ball. But like, it'd be like watching him play catch, right? Like it's... But as it relates to Trey, specifically his stats, and I appreciate the guys that log, or the reporters that, it's not all guys, that log his stats, because it's an attention to detail that is useful. But
it's clearly a little subjective too, because the numbers are a little different.
Numbers are different, yeah. But I don't particularly care if he's 17 of 20 or 16 of 19. Doesn't matter to me. It would matter to me if he was 10 of 20. Like in practice, most of the throws set up in practice are layups. First of all, there is no pressure. They cannot hit you. So when you just begin with that, we understand that it's very different than a game situation. But we put that aside. I was thinking about it today. Like, how would I explain or describe the way I watch? And again, appreciative of the people that take the time. I like knowing what his completion percentage was. But again, it doesn't change the way I watch the practice. To me, there's a handful of throws, and maybe we can try and keep track of these Wednesday, that require a throw above replacement, right? Like wins above replacement. Most of the throws made in a practice are replacement level throws. Most of your quarterbacks, it's a 7-on-7. The tight end is just going to be open, the cover, whatever.
A wheel route to the running back.
Yes, these are not throws. If you airmail it now, that's an alert. But if you miss it, these are open jumpers. These are layups. These are not throws that if you complete them, tell us a lot about you. Now, there's a handful of throws that occur that we go, wow, okay. But to me, you described it. This team's played in a lot of big games over the last few years. I think when the Niners, and I think when you watch them, when I watch them, I am imagining those big game situations. Will these throws translate in big moments? Will it translate on a 3rd and 8 in a 2-minute drill, right? Those are the types of things. So I don't particularly care about the completion percentage. Again, glad somebody does it. I look at it, but unless it's bad, it doesn't really tell me much.
Yeah, I mean, there was one pass that really stood out to me, and it was a play. I think Jimmy was even talking about it, a play that he squeezed between two defenders over the middle. It was one of those, Juwan Jennings probably somewhere 12 to 15 yards, an in route or slant, something over the middle of the field that would have been a first down in any situation, basically, and get two guys dive in to break it up. It was really impressive, right? Juwan kind of extended. It was just a high-level pass. But I don't put any stock into the stats. Like you said, unless it's like balls are flying all over the place, which is just not going to happen in these type practices with a guy who is just okay. It's not going to happen with Nate Sudfeld, let alone the third pick in the draft, who's just accuracy is going to be something that we're going to evaluate on him, in my opinion, in games. Like that's the hard part about the OTAs and even training camp. But training camp, once the pads come on, it's a little more realistic. I do think it's very, very difficult to. You could, like, if we just really watch Drake Jackson tomorrow, you'd be like, God, you see that guy's get off? You see some of his just ability to bend. They're going to see some things that immediately translate, even though after a couple steps he has to stop. It's really hard for a quarterback. Like, we know Trey's big. He's got a big arm. He's working to, we could say the release a little bit, but still, it's going to be a work in progress. Part of playing quarterback, why I think it's so difficult, is like every week, new defenses, new schemes, new routes, new players. Like, part of the thing that, like, everyone that you learn in training camp, the longer you're around football, from an evaluation standpoint, it's like, why do some guys look better the longer they go into training camp? Because they're playing the same player every week or every day. You just, like, part of football, right, is the opponent. It's the most unique part about all the sports. It's like the one game a week, and you spend all week game planning opponents, individual players. Like, this corner does this shitty, this linebacker does this, and that's the entire game plan to utilize your skill set. And quarterback, it's all 11 guys trying to fool them. And I think tomorrow will probably look pretty good. Like, the one negative I have that is a little concerning, because it is one thing, like you said, the word layup, is the little wheel route. That Kaepernick, I think, is a good example of, like, Colin was more physically gifted than Trey. He was faster, clearly. He was taller, and I would say he had a better arm. And Colin, like, when he let it rip, it wasn't wobbling. Like, it was he threw spirals fast. But he
threw Mike Vick level deep ball lasers.
Stupid. If Mike Vick had been 6'6", right? I mean,
yeah. I just mean the ball piercing the air, right? Like what Brady actually has become as a deep ball thrower. Although,
yeah. And the one thing with Kaepernick, like, his release, by the time he released it, it was pretty quick. The thing on the wheel routes and some of the quicker stuff, I mean, by the end, when people were making fun of him, it'd be like, Cap just hit the trainer, because the touch on the little stuff, and that to me is just something to keep an eye on in the practices. But like, I don't even put that much stock if you overthrow a guy. Like, these had Memorial Day weekend. Now you're coming back in t-shirts. It's like, what? But like you said, I put zero stock guy into, he was 21 of 26 today. And the other guy's saying he's fucking 17 of 30. It's like the numbers.
No, they're usually one off. They're usually one off.
You know what I mean, though.
Yeah,
it's like there's never like a universal. He was 17 of 23 today, 3 touchdowns, 1 sack. Because no one even knows. Like, would he have been sacked? Did he keep it alive?
Yeah.
Especially and the difference of, like, I put zero stock into Nate Sudfeld, but Nate Sudfeld is just a pocket quarterback. He's never going to move. Part of Trey's game is some of the, keeping plays alive with his feet, but they always blow the whistle. But then the quarterback gets to extend it. You're like, what would even be going on here?
Yeah.
It is very.
But what I will say in that specific situation is deep ball accuracy does interest me in practice. You don't get that many shots at it. You only get a couple throws usually.
No, but wouldn't you say that just in general, I would say the deep ball percentage for any quarterback is just much lower. So like, if he does overthrow a guy, like, I'm not going to crush him on one pass. But you're right. He might just throw 2 deep balls all day.
Yeah.
And what if he misses both? Does that mean he stinks? Or is it just like, you had 2 shots in this practice about an hour and a half?
He threw one to Danny Gray last Tuesday. That Danny Gray got, like, bumped by 2 guys on the route. The play never had a shot. It had nothing to do with – it was not his fault. Nate Sudfeld hit a deep ball. Whatever. It's not so much that it confirms anything. I look at these OTAs a little bit like you'd look at baseball, right? Like, if you went to take one of the top prospects in baseball, if it's a hitter, and you go to his debut, Adley Rutschman for the Orioles, who debuted a couple weeks ago. You go and watch his first game. Do you watch any of his? You watch 3 at-bats, 4 at-bats. let's say he strikes. I don't know what he did in his first game. Let's say, I know he had a triple in his first big league hit. Let's say he strikes out twice, hits a dribbler to second, and has a triple. Do you walk away with any big conclusions, or do you just say, here's what I saw today? Here's what I saw today. I saw a fastball get in on his hands. Today, I saw him recognize a slider and he hit it down the right field line. Today, I saw him work a count, even though he grounded out. It was a good AB. And I think that's kind of the way we talk about Trey. I think Trey, I would say I am on the spectrum of Trey Lance. I am optimistic. Like, I think Trey Lance can be a good player. I would take the chance on Trey Lance. But it doesn't mean that after a practice, if he missed a wheel route, we don't say he missed a wheel route. It doesn't mean we're reevaluating everything we know about Trey Lance. But the guy's basically, going into like a semi-rookie, a second year in the league with not a lot of experience. The idea that there's not anything that he's working on or needs to get better at is insane.
Guy has 2 career NFL starts.
Yeah, but I think part of like the back and forth is most guys play multiple years before they're at their best. It's called peaking. You don't peak right away. So until you reach your peak, you're trying to get better at things. And then it all comes together for you. This is why we talk about he needs to play. This stuff needs to translate. So we know it needs to happen in games so we can know what it means. But this is a practice. There's only 20. Think about that. There's 20 throws. So do we nitpick them? Yes, of course. Yeah. But and then all of it then we take what we thought last week and what we thought this week and what we think next week. And then we put it all together and we go, what did we think of the 3 weeks? What needs to get better? Whatever. Can you win right now with this version of this guy? Right. Those are all the opinions that we're forming.
Well, the coaching staff in the front office is doing the same thing, right? They are evaluating based off what they're watching. Why do some tryout players that go to rookie minicamp get signed? You're like, wow, we saw something we liked. Why does an undrafted free agent, maybe by the 3rd minicamp or the OTA, you're like, this guy is not going to make it, and they get cut?
You're making snap judgments all the time.
Yeah, all the time. And based off what you already knew. Well, we were hesitant this is the reason we didn't draft him, and we were proven right. Or damn, we might have missed on this. There were questions about Trey when he was drafted 3rd overall. But the one thing that is not, I feel better about our original take, and I think the universal take around here was under no circumstances do you do Mac Jones over one of the other 2 guys. You take a swing. And I feel better about that now because Mac Jones' ceiling is just, I could not be doing that. And I who knows, like, I think Kyle, it is going to test him. This is going to be, now you could say Jimmy tested him, but part of Jimmy had a baseline of knowledge of the sport that, like, Kyle, for the first time since RG3, and it's a little different because he's also the head coach now, like, it's just starting from the ground up. Now, by year 2, you would say Trey already has a large base. Like, when you go to calculus, you've already had algebra and geometry. Like, Trey did get last year to learn what it'd like to be a pro, what it'd show up every day to be a 49er, the playbook, his teammates, the expectation of the head man, right? What the offensive line does. So he's not coming into this square one. Like, he has a year under his belt of learning. Patrick Mahomes, same thing, right? Got to learn, sit, and now it's trying to institute this stuff and improve on what he's got. He's just got I've been saying it forever. He's got a lot going on. There's a lot going on for him. Like this, I admire these guys in this spot, the amount of pressure. Like, he is under, and he's getting paid a lot of money, right? He has not accomplished anything, right? There are a lot of guys in the NFL that have accomplished way more that make way less. But just in terms of the pressure that's on this guy, taking over for a quarterback, very flawed. He was the starting quarterback for a team that won 4 playoff games in 3 years. Oh, that's more than, as Mike McCarthy won 4 and Aaron Rodgers won 4 playoff games in like 8 years. So it's just, it's going to be intense, but he's got to figure it out. That's part of the NFL, right? Sink or swim. It's very intense. In these practices, like I try to downplay him sometimes, but I don't think Kyle would, right? I don't think Trey does. I don't think they know what's at stake and the improvement, and just because of the expectation, once we come to training camp, it's going to be high for this team, and it should be, right? I mean, they have,
which is a pressure, but it's also a benefit to Trey Lance that he's got a good football team around him.
That's a huge benefit because the other guys, right? Fields' team sucks. Zach Wilson team, they've drafted a lot of guys, but we don't know if any of them are that good. Trevor Lawrence's team is a joke. Look at Mac. Mac was the most ready, and he got to go to the most normal, easy situation.
If you went when you were scouting, if you went to a lot of college practices, so like what would you write down after a practice?
It was more body type stuff at practice. That's why they wanted you to practice. So
And talking to people.
Yeah, but even at practice, to me, it was more body type. To like, if you're going to say, hey, I think Javon Kinlaw is so-and-so, I stood next to him. He's enormous, right? And you don't get to see that guy when you're in the building potentially, right? And you're going to meet with people. So you're not at practice. You're not. Now, some guys do this. I only really did. I mean, I was around him for multiple years at Fresno State. Like, is the guy first in line, right? Because in the pros, like, Ayuk's first in line or whatever, but no one would judge him if he was second in line. Like, it's just part of, just the practice. It might be set up by the position coach. Like, if I go to a college football practice, Jordan Addison better be leading every group for the receiver, right?
I'll tell you,
that type of stuff matters.
I do like Debo and Ayuk first in line together.
But I would imagine, like, do you think Jamar Chase and Higgins are first in line? It's probably just natural.
But think about it. If you're the receiver coach and you have potential Hall of Famer Jamar Chase, and you sit down with Jamar Chase, like, here are the things I think it takes for you to wouldn't that be one of the things? Like, you got to be a leader in the room. Like, that's one of those things I think is easy to explain away. Be like, it doesn't mean anything. But just put yourself in the shoes of the position coach. You would tell that guy, you're the leader, so you should be first in line.
Yeah, and even if you're not a speaker, then you got to lead by example.
Even better. It's an easy
I'll
thing
never
to do.
forget going to the Niner practices with Bowman and Wilson. 52 and 53 they were just first in everything that happened.
Yeah.
It's just like, God, these guys are just fucking ride these guys.
It's one of those things where it's easy to be like, we're being too hard. It doesn't have to be first. But I would say the opposite. It's one of those easy things that a leader does.
It's very easy because they don't expect, you don't have to say a word, because I'd say most coaches are cool. Obviously, you need vocal guys, but if you just have a lot of leaders by examles, that's pretty good, right?
Also, think about it like when you
Honestly,
were a kid.
most people like that. Like,
think about being a kid at practice. You wanted to be first because you got to go again sooner if you went first. You know what I mean? Like, it just, to me, shows a little bit of passion too. Andrew says, I think people will be surprised by how much better and natural he looks as a runner in year 2. It seemed obvious he was thinking too much and not playing reflexively. I agree that it seemed obvious that he was thinking too much and not playing reflexively as a runner. And I think reps can fix that, and comfort with the speed of the game can fix that.
See, to me, that would be one true thing. We have no clue until the games start. Because even in practice, like, I thought he looked good athletic last year in practice, but obviously no one can hit him. To me, that's one thing. Like, once the games start, it might be a couple. I don't know if they'd let him run in the preseason. Now, I guess he could take off, but like, does he run any faster?
You think this preseason opens with QB power? Send a message.
See, but that's a good question. Would you have Trey Lance get preseason reps?
Not running the ball, and I probably wouldn't have him do that much anyway. Like, he's gonna be my starting quarterback when the season starts.
Yeah,
I know the one thing that can torpedo my season is that guy not being healthy.
I think it's a very slippery
because
slope.
I don't think you could recreate the Nick Mullins. Like, I don't think you're winning a couple of games with the back. I agree with what you said earlier about their backups.